Hi, I'm Jodie and I'll be talking about how Nolan uses the 6 editing criterias. The 2 films I will mainly be focusing on are The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, of which are both edited by Lee Smith. The reason I picked Nolan is that he has won awards such as Best Movie, Best Screenplay, and he's won over 5 Best Director awards for Memento, Prestige, and of course the mind-blowing Dark Knight. But the main reason is that he proves Murch's theory of only needing emotion and rhythm to captivate an audience. Walter Murch's theory consists of the 6 editing criterias: emotion, story, rhythm, eye trace, 2-dimensional, and 3-dimensional. Story. When editing, you always have to think about whether or not the cut advances the story. Although all films are done in its own original way, depending on the style and the editor. Cross-cutting is a particular style that's used by Lee Smith. He uses it in Inception to show the similarities between a dream sequence and what's happening in the real life. For Inception, Lee Smith's approach was to construct each sequence as a standalone, and then he would start to intercut and intercut and intercut, working out where all the best transition points were. Lee Smith says Inception was probably the most intense editorial experience of his life. Although sometimes you can savour the moments by slowing them down or even speeding them up. For example, here, I purposely slowed it down in order for you to see the impact that is about to happen. Or in this cut, I even make it jump twice for extra impact. Slowing this scene down empowers the men, as all of your attention is on them. The montage edit has been around for quite a while. For example, the Battle of Potemkin also uses it. In filmmaking, a montage is an editing technique in which shots are juxtaposed in an often fast-paced fashion that compresses time and conveys a lot of information in a relatively short period. This is shown in the Battle of Potemkin, as you see the chaos of the army and the issue of the mother knocking the baby down the stairs. Inspired by how you can show a lot of information in a short amount of time, I have done my own montage of what my regular morning sequence is. Kick it! Although there are some films that have their own style completely, and they're called the experimental films. The only thing that links the plot or anything at all together is the way that we've edited it. Tous les clients immédiatement le tout charmant. Tout juif d'une gosse de Paris, au pinois exquis, fière et dégourdie, fraîche comme un matin de printemps, je charme un instant et pense en chantant pour mieux séduire à l'éclat de ma beauté. Je joins la fraise de la gaieté. Rhythm. Editing serves to establish space and lead the viewer to the most salient aspects of a scene. In the classical continuity style, editing techniques avoid drawing attention to the cuts.
He always leaves so early.
Oh, he never. Well, he's got a girl up to the Blue Parrot. Goes up there all the time.
You used to be a much better liar.
As you can see, they used one steady shot throughout this conversation, compared to Nolan, who has to target more of the MTV audience that are used to quick cuts. Because this audience is used to this sort of editing, Nolan has had to use editing styles to suit their needs. When comparing the Dark Knight conversation to Casablanca's conversation, you see that the cuts are constantly from one person to another, depending on who's speaking. Also, the editor has chosen other shots, such as the crowd that are looking onto them. In Casablanca, it could have been a possibility to show the room to create atmosphere, but rather they wouldn't want the cuts to be obvious. Interested in the differentiating of edits, I decided to take on the task of editing Moulin Rouge in an MTV fashion. One technique I used was sound in order to make the cut jump to the next one. When cutting from close-ups and wide shots, I used them specifically to show the characters' emotion on their faces. Not caring about continuity, I did jump cuts from one scene to another. This heightens the tension and also adds more of a rhythm in the music. As the tension built to the climax, I used quicker jump cuts to mirror the image of chaos. Another technique is parallel editing. This is editing that alternates shots of two or more lines of action occurring in different places, usually simultaneously. Christopher Nolan is widely known for his use of the parallel editing. He utilizes this technique to put across his action scenes. This edit is shown in the first 10 minutes of The Dark Knight Rises. Using this edit, he jumps between the Batman and the police, thus telling two stories of the policeman wanting to try and catch Batman, whereas Batman is trying to catch the robbers.
What's that? I'm gonna take down the Batman.
I have made my own parallel edit. To do this, I jump between two locations that hold two different threads. One being a schoolgirl on her way, the other being two teenage drunk girls driving.
It's an old man.
Cutting between the two locations enabled me to move time across a lot more quicker. Eye trace. Eye trace is used for the audience to understand who is conversating without having all the characters in one shot, thus lining up one edit to another. The following clip I will be showing you is Lord of the Rings. In Lord of the Rings, I chose my edit specifically for eye trace. This shot signals another person walking into the screen by Frodo looking off of camera. Juxtaposing it with this shot, you realise who it is that's stepping in.
You have my sword.
With Elrond tracing him off screen, it then helps that Frodo then introduces him in the next shot. Knowing that Sam is hiding, we then get an introduction of where he is when Elrond looks at him. Two-dimensional and three-dimensional. In the continuity style, the space of a scene is constructed along what is called the axis of action. This axis of action determines a half circle or 180-degree area where the camera can be placed to present the action. The The filmmaker will edit the shots so as to respect this center line. Lee Smith, the editor of Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, says it is quite easy to overcut a sequence, making it visually exciting and lose track of what is happening and who the characters are. This is proven in both films that he has edited. There is no real order amongst these films. The 180-degree line is always crossed and people are moving from side to side. This goes against the last two of the 6 editing criteria of Murch's theory. Jim Emmerson argues that Nolan's lack of continuity and respect of the 180-degree line ruins the viewer's experience. My argument is that looking at the film from Murch's view, the film still gives you the full 51% of emotion. And finally, I have left the most important category for the end. Emotion. Lee Smith quotes, "We are both emotion junkies," and that's the strength of the film. Heath Ledger's character, the Joker, was used to strike emotion within the audience, particularly in the editing, as Smith used sharp, jolting cuts so the punches and blows would register with particularly visceral force. To strike a negative emotion in the audience, Lee Smith has purposely juxtaposed the emotional side of Harvey Dent's face and the trauma side of his face. This builds a relatable feeling within the audience as they too go along the feelings with Harvey Dent through the close-ups of his saddened face. This point of view shot of the coin juxtaposed with Harvey Dent's reaction tells us that he is remembering past events. This is further established through the next cut. The use of this non-linear edit makes us grieve for Harvey Dent as we watch his reaction of remembering who has died in order for him to live. I made a questionnaire in order to further my knowledge of whether or not the typical target audience enjoyed their experience whilst watching The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. Questionnaire numbers 1 and 5 both said that they were enthralled by both The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, while questionnaire numbers 2 and 3 mentioned that they both feel for the characters. In questionnaire number 4 you can even see that there's favouritism towards Heath Ledger's character, the Joker. Using a variety of films along with my own experiments, I have shown my understanding of the 6 editing criteria. I have proven Murch's theory of only needing emotion and story for Nolan's films to still be a success with the lack of continuity. Thank you for listening.